Hello, my crafty friend, and thank you so much for tuning into today's video. We are having our 12 days of gifts to make for your crafty friends, and today's gift idea is a mini Quan Yin booklet. Now I'm going to do two variations. One, if you're under a time crunch and you just need a really quick little paper gift or something to throw in, maybe with a Christmas card or with a letter to a pen pal to give them something a little bit more than just the card. And the second variation is going to be a complete mini Japanese themed junk journal inspired by this Quan Yin book project. So before I get into it, I will be using the printable digital set from my Etsy shop called the Quan Yin mini booklet. I've printed out 2 copies, and I'm so sorry about the glare. It's that time of year where I just can't catch a break lighting wise. But anyway, I've printed out 2 copies, one on linen paper, so you can see there's a bit of a basket weave texture to it. And it's an ivory tone paper, so it automatically makes everything you print on it look kind of antique-y. And then the second, I've printed on this very fine mulberry paper that has little blue flower petals made right into it. Now, this will affect the look of the prints. Like, as you can see, a flower petal appeared right in the middle of Quan Yin's beautiful face. So if you're a bit of a perfectionist, this kind of paper might not be for you, but if you like things that are a little quirky and one of a kind, I just love printing printables on mulberry paper. So this would be an awesome gift for anybody who loves Japan or who's inspired by the compassion tradition of bodhisattvas, because Quan Yin, she is the bodhisattva of compassion. The original book that inspired me to make this project I found online from an antique dealer in Japan, and the condition was listed as crumbling. It definitely came to me already super dog-eared and falling apart and crumbling. But among the pages, which are outlining a pilgrimage path in Japan to Quan Yin temples, there were actually 7 gorgeous Quan Yin illustration prints. And so those are what I've turned into my printable set, and that's what we're going to make today's booklets out of. I just want to show you how cool this is. So each page is kind of like a double page, and that's how they keep the images from affecting each other. See what I mean? Like, the ink really bleeds through because it's very, very fine rice paper. So each leaf of the book can be opened up and becomes 2 leaves. And the reason I'm showing them, obviously, right to left instead of left to right is that that is how Japanese books are made to be read. They read left to right. So, without further ado, I'm going to start on the first variation of this little craft project, which is just a very simple little Quan Yin mini book. First, obviously, we have to cut out our Quan Yins, and this is why, you know, heads up warning, these videos are not going to be quick watches, so I hope you've got something to kind of do while I do the prep work here of cutting out all of these pages. They're straight lines, so it's not going to take too long. But yeah, I considered preparing all of this in advance off camera, but then I thought, hey, I've had comments from some of you that you enjoy craft with me style videos because they give you a chance to have something to listen to in the background while you're working on your craft projects, and I get that. I do that too. I love putting on, I think her channel is called 501 Willow House. She's this cool Southern lady with such a fun accent to listen to who makes all kinds of junk journal goodies. And I've recently taken to putting on her videos in the background while I do my own kind of crafting. So I hope I can be as entertaining as she is. But yeah, you see how quickly this goes? Or how quickly it feels like it goes if you're chatty and having fun while you work. So yeah, it's just, I'm not being too perfectionistic about it because I'm going to kind of distress the edges once I'm finished my cutting. And by kind of distress them, I mean just do a little bit of crumpling, a little bit of inking, maybe a little bit of distressing with the scissor edges. If you like things junky in your junk journals, you could even consider folding and tearing along the folded lines instead of cutting these pages to give it a really soft edge. I might do that in the future when I make one of these to include in a junk journal, just for fun. But honestly, I don't mind cutting stuff out. It's kind of part of the process. So the paper strips I always save for one reason, because my cats love to play with them, and for another reason, you never know when you're going to need to make a hinge or something or add them into collages. So I'm setting those aside, and what we have after cutting them is 4 strips of illustrated Quan Yins. So these are the back sides of the pages, and we want those on the inside when we fold them. And again, like you can see, I'm not being too perfectionistic about it. So there we have it. 4 leaves, which translates into 8 pages for this little mini booklet. And see how cool that looks? Now, if you don't have linen textured paper or mulberry handmade paper, you can definitely do this just with regular printer paper. I've done that too. What I like about the ivory toned textured paper is that even if you don't distress ink it, it already has that ivory tone, so it automatically looks a little bit older than other papers. But what I want to do here is just get in here with my distress ink. I'm using Vintage Photo. I've had this for I think 3 years now, and I haven't had to buy a new one yet, so I think it's a good investment. I'm not being too perfect. I'm not going around the entire edge. I just want it to look a little bit distressed. Maybe we'll get a bit of a rip in here. I just find with things like this that are prints of antique pages, it's nice to make the print kind of feel a little bit ancient too. That just gives it that extra little creative touch. And it also makes it more original, you know, because hundreds of us, oh, there goes my kitty. Hundreds of us could print out the same exact printables, but none of us will distress them identically or do quite the same thing with them in the end. So these little touches also kind of make your work a little bit more original. Alternatives to distress ink. So if you don't have one of these little handy tools, you can use a makeup sponge. What I find is the sponges that come in a powder compact have the same exact felt texture as the circles of felt on these distress ink tools. As a vegan crafter, I always make sure that they're made of cotton, not wool. But yeah, makeup sponges work. And that's assuming you have the ink. If you don't have the ink, when I was first getting into junk journals and didn't have much of a budget to work with for my materials, I kind of learned about distress inking at around the same time I learned about coffee dyeing paper. And so I did all kinds of experimenting. And if you pour a little bit of coffee into, I should have prepared for this to show you, but I think you'll get it. Pour a little bit of black coffee into a saucer and let it dry. and then take a little wet sponge and dip it into that dried coffee, and it can be used kind of like ink. It won't be a permanent ink, but it definitely, it's better than nothing. So there we go. I've cut and inked all of these. And so for our little booklet, we could bind it together this way. So by putting holes, and that, you can see how it was originally bound by the holes in the side here. There were 4 holes, and then it was sewn together with string, the way Japanese books are bound with string. So you could do that totally, and then it's just a cool little keepsake booklet that shows Quan Yin. But what I'm thinking of doing here is putting the binding on the folded edge instead of the loose edge, so that whoever receives this little booklet can actually use the blank sides of each page either for their own journaling, or maybe to collage items that they collect, or to put little stickers or little curios. And so I'm going to, go over with the side of my scissors here just to really strengthen those fold creases. And now I'm going to kind of hold it down with my fingers like this, just to make sure we're not going to lose too much of the picture before I poke my holes. So yeah, that still looks really nice, doesn't it? It won't be an authentic reproduction, or it won't be a true reproduction of this little book, but that's okay. With all honor and respect to the beautiful Quan Yin, this project is more to add her grace into a journal, but also make it a usable little booklet. So yeah, that's how I'm going to do this. I have some bookbinding tools here, but if you do not, this can very easily be staple bound. Just make sure to clip all the pages together so that it's, here's where I get a little bit perfectionistic, but not too much. Clip the pages together just so that it's held evenly and securely. And if you don't have bookbinders all like this one, you can put it on a bulletin board and poke holes with a thumbtack, and then stitch it up with the sewing kit that you get free in a hotel room. But what I'm going to do is, I always save my scraps when I'm binding journals, and so I have some pieces here that would be just the right size to sew a little mini booklet like this. So I'm going to use one of those in a waxed cotton, similar in color to this paper. So to make it kind of authentic, I'm just going to look at the holes here to get an idea of where to punch them. So 4 holes total, and you can tell I'm not a measurer when I do things like this, because to make the books fit for printing, I had to reduce the size just a little bit. But the printable kit that I have in my Etsy shop, I've also included the original scanned files, so you can also see how grungy this is. It's all distress ink and glue remnants and sticker pieces, so don't worry, it's not actually anything yucky, it just looks that way. But yeah, I had to reduce the size just a little bit so that it could be printed in 2 pages and not waste tons of paper and tons of ink for the mini book. So there, just as easy as that. You can, of course, measure it if you choose to, and spend a little bit longer on the process. But I find those of us who are into junk journals, we kind of like things to be a little imperfect, right? My day 1 craft was the Kitsungi vase bookmarks, and that's also all about making things perfectly imperfect. So I'm not sewing this perfectly. I think perfect is our keyword of the day. I'm just making sure to go through every hole and also around the edges. And my apologies to you if you're watching this and you are a perfectionist or maybe have Japanese heritage and you can see that I'm not doing this properly. So it's not really a sewing tutorial, more like a little mini booklet tutorial. But if anybody knows of or has a link to a video out there in YouTube land for how to do Japanese binding, you're more than welcome to leave it in a comment for those who might want to know the precise or the perfect method for this. So as you can see, I've gone through every hole and gone around the bottom edge, the top edge, and here, but there's little gaps and there's also a string end that needs to be tied. What I do for that is just go back through so that there's string filling in all of these little holes. And then I'm just going to tie this one right here. And believe it or not, yes, I save even these little string bits because sometimes you need a little tiny string for a tiny tag or a little miniature ornament or something. So those get thrown back into my bookbinding box. And there we have it. Just a very simple, easy to make, fast, minimal materials required booklet. And your pen pal or your crafty friend who receives it should find a lot of little space for quirky details and for fun. So this was the first variation, just the simple little paper booklet of Quan Yin, bound opposite of where we would normally bind this to be authentic. The next one I'll bind so that each leaf is as it was in the original. So I'll put the holes, I guess you can say the proper way on this one. But I'm not going to make this one just a little Quan Yin book. I'm also going to add some fun Japanese stuff that I think all of us might, or at least all of us should have access to. I know some viewers have commented that there really isn't the same kind of thrifting or antique shops in other places, but I mean, you can find thrifty things online too if you don't have a thrift store near you. So yeah, what I'm going to make into this little one that's going to be more of a little mini journal, I'm using some Japanese fabric that I ordered a couple years ago just off of AliExpress. Since then, I've become a lot more eco-conscious in my crafting. So whereas I used to order supplies from Amazon and AliExpress, and also, of course, Etsy and craft shops online and, you know, antique book dealers, I now try to find as many of my materials as possible, if not all of my materials, in shops like thrift stores and antique stores. So what I'm doing here, I'm sorry, I don't mean to start crafting ahead without explaining. I've taken two just blank pieces of that really gorgeous linen paper and also one sheet of just regular printer cardstock. And I'm going to cut these out along with these Quan Yin printables. And that way we're going to have our next papers in the exact size, shape, style, and length as the Quan Yins. And so they're not going to be perfect, but we're not making perfect journals, we're making junk journals. So yeah, this one I have one of my cousins in mind. She absolutely loves Japan. The way I love India and the ancient Vedic tradition, and just find so much inspiration when I see my Ishta Devatas, Kali and Saraswati. I have a cousin who has that sort of a feeling, maybe less religiously motivated or less spiritually motivated, but she just really loves the culture of Japan. So I'm thinking she may become the recipient of this little booklet. If not, I'll stash it away for someone who is a Japanese enthusiast and also into the crafty crafts. There we go. See, it doesn't take too much time, and if you line up all the papers that you want cut to the same length all at once and just do them en masse, it is so much faster to do your cutting. I mean, obviously. But yeah, just look at how cool this looks on the handmade paper. You could also do this if you have rice paper that's printer friendly. But yeah, it just looks so much more authentic, and it feels a lot more authentic too because it has that fine, thin, handmade texture like the original. So I'm going to go ahead and fold these the same way that I did for the first sample book. And as I do that, I'm just going to trim off that little bit of white that was peeking through and just do a little bit of distressing. I'm not distressing the insides of the pages this time. I'm just going to do a little inking on the outer edges, since the inner parts of the paper will not be visible in this one. I would love to hear what you've made for friends or what you may have received as far as handmade gifts goes. Maybe what's your favorite gift to make, not just in the holiday season, but any time of year. I typically make jewelry for my female friends and relatives, well, and also for my boyfriend. When it was his birthday, I made him a cool men's bracelet. But yeah, I love, love, love making handmade gifts. I just think there's something super special about them, knowing that you're receiving something. Somebody didn't just, you know, go to a big box store or go online and buy, but something that has the artist's hand in it. I feel like there's soul in it. My dear friend Martina from the YouTube channel Magnolia Fairy Tale, we did a journal swap this year. It was my first journal swap and her first journal swap too, which is kind of cool that we both were each other's first swap partner. And when she made a flip through of the book that I made for her recently, she said that in the beginning that, you know, holding somebody's art, there's energy in it, there's a soul to it. It's not just a printed thing or a store-bought thing, but it has the artist's hand, which also has the artist's essence. Now, yes, I am ripping these because I want the front and the back to be useful on each. And these will be the journal pages for your crafty friend who might receive this book, or maybe my crafty friend or crafty cousin, depending on who I give this to. And I like making the pages imperfect. Another artist who I really find a lot of inspiration from online is Luna Rosu. And I was just just earlier today, watching one of her videos, and she mentioned that cutting things deliberately imperfectly and having rectangles are never perfect rectangles and squares are never perfect squares. The variation, the variety adds so much to a book. So I'm going to put these so that sometimes it's the torn edge out, sometimes it's the other edge out. Again, just for the variety. So in this little booklet, the Quan Yins are spaced throughout. They're not all in a row. And like I said, we've also got these blank papers so that there's writing space, even though the Quan Yins are just decorative pages. So these are the main little pages for our booklet. But of course, I don't want to leave it at just that. I'd also like to add some genuine Japanese ephemera. So first and foremost, the pages from this original booklet that do not actually have Quan Yin, they do have stunning texture. See how somebody took the time to repair it at one point with these pretty purple. Maybe I'll save that page for a project that will show the corners better, because this one will not, just because of the size difference between the original and the mini booklet. But yeah, I'll take one of these pages and let's see, how can we include this? What I'm going to do is sew it in just as it is, and then after it's sewn in, I'm going to fold it like so and like so, so that it becomes a flip out page. That way we're not losing any of it, but we are also not keeping it as perfect as it is now. The other ephemera I'd like to add, so when I go thrifting, I always check out the book section, and whenever there's an art history textbook, to me those are the biggest scores, because you can find so many cool prints for a very cheap price. And a lot of them are so old that there's no copyright. So for example, the Great Wave, also from the Edo period. But yeah, I'm thinking these calligraphy scrolls are beautiful. This winter landscape, since this is sort of a Christmas gift book, that fits the theme nicely of the winter season. So I'm just going to tear this. I'm saving these other two little banners for another project one day. Oops. I didn't mean to tear right into the image, but maybe if I was tearing a single paper instead of accidentally tearing two at once, that could have, I hope I didn't damage anything. Nope, that's still usable. I'm just going to get that little bit of white out of the way too. There. Set that aside for future projects. Oh yeah, look at that. Don't you love it when the size turns out to be just perfect, even though you're doing something spontaneously? I feel like that is the universe telling us we're in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing, when things just work out that way. I'm wondering if I should, yes, I'm going to bind it in on that side so that you can still kind of have the artist information and details visible. And then this gives us some space to collage over and cover up. Or maybe we'll leave it, let's see. But I would say with that addition, plus this original Edo period print page, we are ready to do the cover. So I've got a little package of Japanese fabrics here. And these are fabrics that I bought online before I got more eco-conscious about my crafting. Look at how pretty that is with the fish. Lucky koi fish. So let's see. I've been working on a dragon-themed journal for a few years now, and I've finished the cover. I've collected a lot of materials, but I have yet to actually finish the piece, but I'm thinking I'll save my fire fabric for the dragon book. I'll also save my dragon fabric for the dragon book. Kat, if you're watching this, let me know, is this the exact identical fabric you made that new paper doll ball gown out of? Wouldn't that be funny if we've had the same fabrics in our collections all this time? Okay. I'm thinking that might be the one. Yes. So let's use this beautiful paper. It looks just like a chiyogai print. Chiyogai is like fancy origami type paper. Or sorry, yeah, origami type paper, and this is like a fabric in that print. So I don't want to waste too much of it, so I'm going to cut it so that it's just a little bit over on the edges. Now, if you don't have Japanese print fabric, you could also take like thrifted fabric of any kind, really, for something like this. You could even print out origami paper prints on printer paper and do like a paper design collage cover. So let's see how this looks. I'm thinking, well, it's going to open. Let's fold this first so that we see what kind of a cover style we're working with. So this will be our front cover, even though it's the back. Perfectly imperfect, just like all the stuff I make. So I'm just going to try to lay it out in such a way that the prettiest part of the fabric print is centered there. So for example, I really love this little cluster of flowers and things and that little spray of cherry blossoms. So yeah, I'm thinking that's our front cover. This goes overlapping a little bit there, and then I'll just, should I piece this onto the back too? No, I think I'm changing my mind and I am going to use maybe a lucky koi fish here to give it some visual differences. Yeah, let's do that. Sorry. My habit is always to pull things off camera and do them on my lap. And I realize how annoying that must be for viewers, so I try to catch myself and not do that. When I'm cutting fabrics like these, if there's a little fully intact koi fish or something like this, I always try to preserve it and not rip through it. I try to only rip through the ones that are already slightly damaged. So there we go. A lucky koi fish and some chiyogai style paper. So I am just going to take a glue stick and glue the fabric down. Trying to not get any on my ledger papers here. There we go. And I'm also going to step aside for just a moment to get my Fabri-Tac glue because we're gonna need that for the back side. Oh, you know what? I didn't align that properly. I want a little bit of the fabric to come off each side. I may have cut this piece a little bit smaller than it should be. So hopefully that still works. Oh yeah, that'll still work. Okay. No, you know what I'm gonna do? See how spontaneous the crafting can be? And there are no mistakes, only happy accidents, as Bob Ross would say. Thinking I'm going to just go like this because we need that little extra overhang to make it look good on the back. Yeah, I just did it again, didn't I? I pulled it off camera and did it off camera. And I didn't leave much of an edge there to fold over. So I'm gonna do this 3rd time's a charm. Or actually, I've lost count. However many times this is a charm. Look at how pretty. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna do a little more glue because this is drying up. This time I'm thinking I'll do it from the back so you can really see that it's all lined up. There we go. That's the way to do it. And now pardon me for just a second. I never edit my videos because for some reason, whenever I have to edit something together with iMovie, it creates a file that's way too big to save on my phone. So my videos are always a little bit less perfected than they could be because I don't do things fast forwarded and put to music or filmed in parts and then spliced together. I had to do that recently with a video and it was really, really a nightmare to try to get it to turn out properly. I had to delete almost every app on my phone in order to save the file. And then even then it was saying the file was too big. So yeah, when you come to my channel, you know what to expect. You expect imperfection, long videos, a little bit less planning than with some crafters. But I think that's also a fun way to be, isn't it? There we go. And yeah, my method for this, as you can see, is not precise or perfect. I'm just making sure that every little bit gets glued down. Let's do these two sides. I've experimented with different types of fabric glue, and Fabri-Tac is my favorite. It holds it really quickly. It's secure, it's permanent. It does gook up at the end, and I have had the tips of the glue break on me when I reach the end, and that's the most annoying thing. But as far as quality of glue is concerned, it doesn't really bleed through and affect the look of the fabric in a bad way, the way a lot of the others do. And when we're investing in the project, whether it's time or whether it's money on the materials or whatever else it might be, we don't want glue spoiling it, right? Glue should be there to just make it look good, hold it together. And yeah, that's what I love about Fabri-Tac. Not sponsored, but if they want to send me some free bottles, I would love to. I would love that. Okay. Because it is expensive stuff too, but I find with some parts of our crafting, we can use thrifted things and budget-friendly options and it looks great. But places where I like to spend a little bit more are papers, printer ink, and glue. There we go. Okay. So there's our front. There's our back. It has that seam, but I'm going to hide that seam with either, oh yeah, let's do it with this koi fish. This little one that I saved instead of the bigger one that I cut out. Because if I go ahead and use this one now, we're going to lose all that beauty. But if I put this one here, yeah, that looks really cool. Just want to make sure it's oriented properly, not upside down. Good. Okay. And I've deliberately kept all of the edges torn and frayed for consistency. There we go. There. So yeah, that cute little koi fish is going to live right there. And I'm going to put the Fabri-Tac all around the edges of this fabric. And that's not only going to seal it down solidly, but it's also going to ensure that the edges don't fray any further than they already have. I like the look of the frayed edge, but we don't want it to be shedding strings every time the future owner pulls out the book to play with it. So obviously, yours will be different. You use whatever fabrics you have. In thrift shops, I found when I went thrifting just before Halloween, a lot of the times you'll find beautiful pieces of clothing that are not costumes. They're traditional garments from other cultures, but for some, you know, residual colonial reasons, Western thrift stores will put things like saris and kimonos in with their costumes. So if you have trouble finding really cool fabrics when you go thrifting, check out the costume sections. You might find really neat vintage stuff there and really neat cultural stuff there. I did find some cool Japanese fabric there as well. I'm just saving it for another project. But yeah, for this one, I think that looks super cute. And obviously we are not leaving this stark white, boring, and ugly. I'm going to cover that up with something. I just haven't quite decided what yet. So let's see. I've got my art history textbook here. I should have left it open to the Japanese section. Oh, look at that. I opened it right back up to the Japanese section again. Yay. Again, those kinds of little happy accidents are like the universe telling us we're in the right place, doing the right thing. Let's see. So not a whole lot of options. And here's where it gets difficult with our crafting. I really love this image of a windswept woman, a geisha as Daruma crossing the sea. So this would be a traditional dance, really cool. I love that, but I also love the bull with a puppy. Look at how cute the little puppy is cuddling up with the bull. So I feel like I don't want to cut this out and ruin that, so I'll keep looking. That's a cool image. Bodhidharma meditating. Okay, okay. That suits our Quan Yin theme beautifully, does it not? Let's see, how can I do it in a way that we're not losing too much of Bodhidharma's image? Yeah, hold it like that. So let's see, I'm just gonna do a torn edge on this one. I think, you know, this is the very first time I've ever made an entire book start to finish in a YouTube video. I've done craft with me videos before. I've done, like I did one for a peacock themed journal cover. I've decorated some pages in a swap book that I'm decorating for my friend May. But yeah, I've never made an entire book start to finish. But just a little booklet like this one doesn't take too long. Now, before I tear that, I'm just going to make sure that this fits properly. It could even be folded just a little bit more. Now, I think I'd want these cool characters and the majority of Bodhidharma's face. Notice how his eyes are looking up towards the third eye. That's actually a technique used not only in Zen Buddhism, but also in parts of Hindu tradition, called a Trataka meditation, Trataka, where you shift the focus of vision to a specific object, usually a candle flame. And by staring at that object, you imagine that it's not only the two physical eyes looking at the object, but also the third eye. But an even more powerful version of Trataka is to deliberately look up into the center. So imagine making yourself go cross-eyed upwards and imagine that you are looking physically at your third eye. It's a really cool way to open that third eye chakra. So anyway, it's neat to see that image of Bodhidharma meditating. So I'm going to use my glue stick for this. Thank you to my friend Kat for sending me the best glue sticks I've ever had. I would never have done something like this with a mere glue stick in the past, but this glue has such a good strong hold. It goes on evenly, it doesn't bunch, it doesn't dry up too quickly. So again, not sponsored, but if you're ever wondering what kind of glue stick to use, I'm going to start buying these ones from now on too. So there we go, there's our cover. I'm just gonna go over this with my scissors just to flatten out any of the bumps. And you know, I should have done this before, but it's never too late. I'm just gonna do a little bit of inking around the edges so it's not too stark white. And I'm not being too precise about it, as you can see. So yes, there will be some distress ink on the fabric too. That does not bother me one bit. There we go. There we have it, our little cover. So now, our bunch of papers. They stick out a little bit, but that's okay. And I'm just thinking, I realize now if I poke holes and sew it into this little cover, is that going to open well enough? We will lose a bit of Bodhidharma, but that's okay. So what I'm going to do is pre-crease this so that there's almost like a hinge in the cover. I hope I'm explaining that properly. Just so that it's not going to be too difficult for someone to open and close later. I'm also going to ink that up just a little bit. There. I don't know if you can see that, but it feels more like a book cover, just having that crease, pre-crease. Okay. So let's see. These are going to go in here and get stitched down. I might just trim a little bit here. You know what? I am going to clip this first so that it's trimmed properly. Oh, my clips were right there. Okay. So these are the edges that we want lined up because they will be sticking out from the book. And there, now I can trim it. And before I forget, I'm also going to add this genuine page from the book from the late Edo period that inspired this whole little project. And I'm going to line that all up right here. Isn't spontaneity fun, guys? Like I didn't plan to do the hinged cover on this or folding or to use two different fabrics, but sometimes challenges make for the coolest finished products. So there we go. It's all clipped in. I want to make sure all the pages get sewn in partly, so I'm just going to kind of drop it here a couple times and have a look. There we go. I've been at this for too long because my kitty Minu just knocked over my weights over there. Let's see. So now I'll need the awl to poke the holes. Our needles. Oh, there's the needle. And some thread. There's the awl. I'm sorry I hit the camera. And let's see, I don't think I have any scraps long enough for this one, so I'll have to cut some new string. Okay. So the way that I'll do that, I don't cut it until the very end, and that way the least amount gets wasted, ideally. But yeah, so I'm going to poke these holes with my cardboard background once again. And keeping in mind that this is our crease line. I know the camera's not picking it up as well, but I'm going to try to poke these holes as close as possible to the center of that crease line. To the center meaning the halfway point between the crease line and the edge of the page. And that way the papers all get caught into it, but we're not getting too close to the edge. There. Make sure they've all gone all the way through, and they have. Don't you love it when things turn out on the first try? I know I do. And it's taken years of crafting to get to the point where I can confidently do something like this on camera. because in the early days, it was definitely much more of a struggle. More of a trial and error and a struggle. Oops. In fact, I might actually have to trim the string because I can see it's getting tangled. Yeah, I'm going to redo that. Or actually, no, I can save that. I think that'll be a long enough bit to tie at the end. Oops. So yeah, I'm doing this the same as last time, just kind of making sure I go through every hole. If you hear fighting, it's because I recently moved in with my boyfriend and our kitties do not love each other as much as we do. So there is some fighty biting going on. They're starting to get better, but whenever Domino comes upstairs, he's my boyfriend's cat. My two girls, even though they're smaller than him and not as fit as he is, they like to chase him. And I think he likes to let them because he knows if they attacked, he could easily outrun them and outjump them to get away. So he kind of taunts them in a way. It's like a sibling rivalry. So before I go around this corner, I remembered I've got this page that I want to fold. So yeah, we're going to lose just a little bit of the corner. Nope, we're not even. We're not going to lose any of the corner. It's going to get folded under there. How cool does this look? Oh, I just love old papers. And I love the mix of old papers with new papers and different types of papers. I think I've started some videos in the past by saying, instead of saying hello my crafty friend, I've said hello paper nerd, because I know we're all paper nerds who are into this stuff. Oh. I might have to jump up and intervene if they do start fighting. Apologies in advance. There we go. See how cool that looks? Okay. Just gonna do... Yeah, it would have been nicer if I had had a bigger little bit of waxed cotton to tie, but that's okay. So there we have it, our little mini Japanese themed book. Not a moment too soon because I hear hissing going on. But yeah, look at how much fun this would be to play with. So especially if you write your friend a little note explaining what the stuff is. And I know if you make it, it's not going to have, you know, this page from the original booklet. But there are other things you could do instead of that. Like, for example, on Etsy for less than $30 Canadian, I ordered these sets of Japanese calligraphy practice pages from the 1800s. So genuine antique Japanese paper. I highly recommend, if you're into this kind of thing, do an Etsy search, do eBay searches, because these things are out there to be found. They're not too terribly expensive, and they really do lend some fun authenticity to your project like this. But yeah, the book page, I'm glad that even though Bodhidharma's face is cut off a little bit here, you can see that he's doing the Trataka meditation. And we have our Quan Yin book pages, more authentic to how they were in the original booklet than in the other variation. We've also got this really beautiful winter scene So there's nothing particularly Christmassy about this book, but it's nice to have that little winter scene in it. If you are giving this as a holiday gift, that adds that winter flair. And of course we could leave it just like this, but I do want to add one more little thing, one more little touch. I found these 1962 stamps from Japan on Etsy, and I've already picked the ones I want to put in this little booklet because it has such a pretty little nature scene, and the color scheme is kind of coordinated to this little booklet. So now I just want to decide where to put it. I'm thinking this page needs a little something because I'm not crazy about the street scene. Actually, no, that's not a street scene, is it? That's a Japanese garden. You know what? We're going to keep that Japanese garden, and we're going to add this stamp to it. Or are we? Decisions, my friends. No, I think this goes at the end. That looks cool right there on that text page. There. How cute is that? So that way there's a nice variety in the papers and in the textures. We have our rice paper print from the original booklet. We have our book page lining the inside of this cardstock. We have the mulberry paper Quan Yin prints. We have the plain paper for writing and journaling. More book page. Yeah, I think this would be a lovely little gift for anyone who loves Quan Yin or who loves Japan and who loves to journal. And how adorable would that be tucked into a journal also. So yeah, 2 variations of very simple Quan Yin inspired mini books. So one, if you have a time or a financial budget, this can be made so quickly with just 2 pieces of paper, some printer ink, and some string. So this probably would cost pennies to produce. And then this one, if you've got some fabrics or cardstocks, or, you know, even the chiyogai paper, if you have a pack of origami paper with fancy prints, that could be glued down instead of fabric and it would look just as good, especially if it's a chiyogai paper with the gold accenting. But yeah, if you've got a little bit more time and a little bit more materials to work with, some fun supplies to work with, you could do the little Quan Yin mini book in more of a journal style. So I hope you enjoyed this little crafty video. I hope it inspires you to make something fun. The Quan Yin booklet printable is in my Etsy shop, and so are some of the crafty things I've made, so I'll put a link to that in the video description below. And if you make one of these, tag me on Instagram. I would love to see how you put it together and how it looks, and to hear how you love it or how your friend loves it if you choose to give it as a gift. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Merry Christmas if you celebrate Christmas, happy holidays if you don't, or just happy whenever if you're seeing this video at another time of the year. So much love to you and happy crafting. Bye for now.